uh, has all the cards that are revealed currently. I'm going to link it right now. Let's see. There's a Reddit thread. And yeah, so let's just get to it. Why not? And I'll also cut this and put it up on YouTube later. So without much further ado, let's look at the Druid cards. I'm just going to go from like top to bottom in the thread and just look at all those, and we'll see how it goes. What's up, Faramir? How's it going, man? What is up? Should I mod you? Yeah. I'll go ahead and mod you. I trust. I need more mods. I trust you. There we go. Alright, so let's check out these cards. Druid of the Saber. And again, this is all... I will caveat this by saying a couple different things. One is that we've still only seen less than half of all the cards in this set right now, so the opinions that you will see me and other players and casters have about these cards is inevitably going to be flawed, because we don't know all the cards in the set yet. We can sort of make general assumptions, we can kind of theory craft a bit, and that's the fun part, right, is that no matter what we say, it's probably going to end up much different than what we're expecting, with a few exceptions, obviously, with some cards. But yeah, so it's just fun theory crafting. Don't take my word as like gospel truth as far as like what these cards are going to be able to do or not do in Hearthstone. One of the great things about CCGs is that it's always evolving, and people are always finding new ways to use cards that may have looked pretty awful otherwise. So or cards that look really good end up being not that great. So pretty awesome. Yeah, so let's start. Druid of the Saber. A 2-mana creature for Druid. How about that? That's something that was a bit lacking in the Druid category as far as class cards go, so that's kind of nice. And it's a cool choose one, too. It's a charge or +1/+1 and stealth. So for 2 mana, you can get a 3/2 with stealth. Not too bad. And charge obviously turns it into, what is that, Murloc or Bluegill Warrior, right? Which is the same thing, 2 mana for a 2/1 with charge. So basically it can be a Bluegill Warrior, or it can be a 3/2 with stealth. That kind of waits around until you activate it. Obviously, you gotta be careful when you're gonna play it. It could get killed by Consecrate, things like that. At 2 health, it's a little bit more vulnerable, but overall, I like this card. I feel like it could see some play, and my favorite kind of deck is like the mid-range Zeus-style deck where you build the board, you focus on trading efficiently and things like that. So I think this one could be really fun. So I'm looking forward to going to testing this one out. I'm like moving the chat so I can see it a little bit easier here. There we go. All right. Oh, thanks, man. Thanks, Faramir. I appreciate it. So, yeah, Druid of the Saber. I think it could genuinely be a pretty good card. It fills an interesting gap in what Druid is lacking as far as class card creatures go right now. So this is going to be a fun one to play around with. I'm definitely going to try some... so I'm just definitely going to try it in Druid decks. And one thing specifically, I've always wanted to make more of an aggressive buffing sort of Druid deck, because there's a lot of cool buffing cards, and maybe this could fit into something like that. I've made it before. The aggro buffing Druid deck is a deck that you can like take to maybe like rank 9 or 10 and then kind of call it a day, right? But it's going to be interesting to see kind of how that evolves over time, because I feel there is room for like a more mid-range buffing style Druid, and this card could fit into that. So we'll see how it goes. Let's move on to Savage Combatant. 4 mana for a 5/4, and Inspire, give your hero +2 attack this turn, which is kind of interesting. Yeah, it is similar to Anodized Robocop. That is true. And forgive me if I move too quickly through these cards. I've got about an hour and a half before Champion starts, and I'd like to get through all of them. If I don't, I'll just make another video later, because I obviously don't want my stream to overlap OGN Champions. So if I move through quickly and I don't respond to chat as much, I apologize. I just kind of want to get through it. So Savage Combatant, because again, this is kind of like just initial impressions, right? So anyway, for the 3rd, 4th time, Savage Combatant. Obviously, it's a 4-drop for 5/4. It makes your hero power give you 3 attack and 1 armor instead of 1 attack and 1 armor. So that's kind of an interesting to consider. Obviously, with 3 attack, you can do more damage. You can trade with things on the board with face, stuff like that. But it's I just don't know about this one. I mean, for 4 mana, and here's a general rule for Hearthstone, I feel, is that it's generally better in Hearthstone when the health is higher cost efficient wise than the attack. So you see something like this, it's got the same stats as a Tall Strider, right? Lost Tall Strider, whatever it's called. And if a card in Hearthstone has the same amount of health as the cost of the card beyond like 3, I think 4 and up, it becomes very, very hard at that stage in the game to keep that card around in order for it to do well. A card like this, you know, unless you ramp it out very quickly, and that's the idea with Druid, right, that you're ramping this out with Innervate or something like that, it may not be the greatest card. It just doesn't seem like it's going to last very long. And that's kind of been my biggest beef with Hearthstone since the beginning, is that the amount of removal in Hearthstone is very, very high compared to a lot of other CCGs. Your minions do not last long in Hearthstone compared to a lot of other games. So that makes it really tough to include a creature like this, I think. So interesting. Horrible community. I'll look at chat. I'll try. I'm just gonna kind of move quickly. Yeah, Ball of Spiders is the best card ever. That's true. Yeah. So that's my feelings on Savage Combatant, and I might end up going back and like referencing these other cards per se, because I'm like seeing chat after I talk about the cards. Anyway, moving on. Darnassus Aspirant. 2 for 2/3. I like the stats right away, like I just said. I think it's nicer when the health is higher than the attack. Battlecry, gain an empty mana crystal. Death Rattle, destroy a mana crystal. So that's really interesting. Again, it can give you a short-term boost. The thing that I like about this is that, again, it's something that is likely to stick around. Any 2/3 like this is fairly solid with anti-aggro. You have to kind of consider if you're going to put something like this in the Druid deck and you've already got these ramping mechanics, why would you use this and not Zombie Chow when you already have Innervate and Wild Growth and things like that? So I'm not sure where it's going to really fit into what we have currently for Druid, but again, keep in mind, like when TVG, or TGT rather, it's like a weird acronym, TGT, it should just be GT, but when TGT comes out, it's going to obviously provide a lot more for us to kind of play around with. So again, we'll see what the rest of the expansion has in store. It's another fairly inexpensive Druid minion, which makes me excited. Again, I like the idea of being more aggressive, of being more buff-oriented, more mid-range oriented with Druid, rather than the current style, which is ramping out, doing the combo and things like that. It's good, it's fun, but the Druid needs something fresh and new, and hopefully this will help provide it. We'll see. We'll see. We will see. And then the Legendary for Druid that's been released already, as I kind of check chat at the same time. Alright, boom. Aviana, and being a League of Legends caster, it's going to be so hard not to call this Anivia, because when you look at the name, it's almost the same. So, Aviana. Alright, 9 mana, your minions cost 1, and it's a 5/5, so fairly durable. Not the most durable, still dies to something like Death Spite, you know, with the Death Rattle and all that, but 5/5 isn't bad stats. It's 9 mana, though, and it's got to be expensive, because it makes all your minions cost 1. And so, this is something that, you know, you think about scenarios where this might work, right? Where it's like, alright, it's turn 9, I have like all these minions for some reason in my hand to turn 9 with Druid. I don't know how this has happened, but it's happened. I'm going to slam down Aviana, and I've got this Innervate that I've been saving, right? Do I want a combo? Hell no. I want to play Innervate and then play 3 minions at 1 mana each. I mean, that's kind of our best case scenario, right? I'm just like dreading the moment where a mage that I'm playing against gets this out of Unstable Portal. That's gonna be a sad day, and I know it's gonna happen. I know it's gonna happen to me. I'm gonna be very sad about that. But Aviana, I mean, the ability is cool, but it's such a strong ability that the mana it's just so cost prohibitive, you know. And again, we want to think about the state that Druid is in right now, and then also the state that Druid might be in once TGT comes out. Hold on, 1 second. 1 second. My dog was chewing on this bone and it was making a lot of noise, so there we go. Alright, so that's it. So Aviana, so what was I saying? Oh yeah, so right now, in the high mana spot for Druid, there's not really a lot of room for a card like this. Not to mention, when you get to the later stages of a lot of Druid games, you don't generally have a lot of minions in your hand at that point. So And even if you did, you'd only get to play one of them, which is a big board swing to play a 5/5 and then presumably, oh, I don't know, like a let's go best case scenario and say you play this right into Scenarios or right into Ancient of War or something like that. It's still a relatively unlikely situation. So we'll see. We'll see if it ends up getting used. There's the dog. We'll hold the dog for a moment. I don't think it's going to really be used, but who knows? Remember, anything could happen when all the cards are revealed. So it's time to move on to Hunter. And we will start with Brave Archer, which is pretty interesting. Yeah. Nimsh was making puns about my dog. I am not surprised. Yeah. So, Brave Archer. A 1 for a 2/1. So immediately, you know, if you're into aggression, I like the stats. 1 for a 2/1 is fun. And Inspire, if your hand is empty, deal 2 damage to the enemy hero. So it's a little bit less good than I initially thought. When I saw this card the first time, I misread it, and I thought that it just said if your hand is empty, deal 2 damage to the enemy hero when you play it. Now that would be cool, because you've got these 1-drops where if you draw them late in Face Hunter, sometimes they're not as good, but it's like, oh hey, when I play this, my hand is empty, I can, you know, do 2 damage, get a 2-1 on the board, whatever, it's okay. But where this is connected to Inspire, I don't know if there's really going to be a lot of room for play. I think we're going to see people experiment with it. Oh, thanks for the sub, David4161. I appreciate it, man. I have all my sub notifications and everything turned off because I'm going to update this. I'm going to upload this to YouTube later. But yeah, thanks for the sub, man. Appreciate it. Anyway, so yeah, Brave Archer, and I know, yeah, the Brave pun with the, wasn't it a Pixar movie? With the archer with red hair and all that. I never actually saw that, so I only know in passing about it. But anyway, Brave Archer, interesting card. May see some play, may not. I think it's worth a try. What would you take out to put it in there? Maybe Worgen Infiltrator to, you know, swap 1-drop spots. Whereas Worgen Infiltrator is obviously much better in the early game. This card is better in the mid-late game, whereas if you draw Worgen Infiltrator late, it's marginal whether or not they can do a lot. You can do a lot with it, you know. But this is something that could continuously do damage too. So I don't know. It's worth a try, but I'm on the fence about that one. So let's go on to Ball of Spiders. Well, it's terrible. That's all we have to say about Ball of Spiders. Let's move on to Lock and Load. 2 mana, Lock and Load. Each time a spell is cast this turn, add a random Hunter card to your hand. So that is interesting because one of the cool things that existed in games like Magic the Gathering that doesn't really exist yet in Hearthstone is enchantments. And I feel like this is one of the cards that's coming closer to making enchantments a thing. And if you're not familiar with what enchantments are in a game like Magic the Gathering, it's a card, it's a spell that's played and then creates a permanent board state until that card is removed one way or another. And sometimes that board state only affects you, sometimes it affects the entire game. They called those like local and global enchantments back in the day. I don't know what they call it now because they're always changing the terminology for MTG, but Lock and Load kind of provides a little bit of that, for 1 turn at least. At 2 mana, it's very playable in later turns, and if it's theoretically possible that you could chain this into quite a bit of damage. So, you know, you play a quick shot, you gain another quick shot, etc., that kind of thing. And you know, you could end up with Ball of Spiders too. Who knows? But it's worth a try. It's another card that I definitely think we're going to see a lot of experimentation with, and it's really interesting. It's a very cool way to theoretically refill your hand and cycle through a lot of things quickly. So I like the idea of it. Even if this card isn't the greatest implementation of the idea, I like it, and I think it's cool that Blizzard is trying something like this. And one thing I've really liked about Hearthstone throughout is that as more cards get released, we see a lot of unique things tried that can't really be done in traditional physical CCGs, and this is certainly one of them. So yeah, props to Blizzard for putting a card like this in the game. We'll see how it works out. Yeah, should be interesting. All right, let's move on to Mage, Spellslinger. 3 mana for a 3/4 battle cry. And I like the stats right away. I'll say that stats are great. Spider Tank is a good card. Spellslinger has good stats too. Then battle cry, add a random spell card to each player's hand. So there's been some debate, and I'm not sure if this has been clarified or not. But oh, see you later, Blissey. Thanks for watching. But yeah, anyway, Spellslinger, add a random spell to each player's card. I don't know if this has been clarified yet, if this is a different spell for each player, or each player gets a copy of the same spell, because that would, you know, maybe make things a little bit different. It's another one of those random elements. Gaining a card is always good, but it is something that could like really screw you over. If you think about something like, what is it? Hungry Dragon, I believe it is, where it's the 5/6 for 4, but you also give your opponent a random 1-drop. People are thinking about that as you know, a good tempo play, but then we all realize that there's a lot of really good 1-drops in the game, and so that card is, you know, kind of fell out of play really quickly. So I'm not sure if this is going to kind of fall into the same category. Again, the stats are good for the mana. It deserves to see some play. Will it be Piloted Shredder, or will it be Blingtron? You know, I mean, Blingtron certainly does see some play a little bit in Mech Mage on the ladder anyway. So we'll see. Again, it's going to be a fun arena card for sure. And when I talk about these cards as well too, I'm going to kind of lead out the arena discussion completely. I'm just going to basically be talking about this as I see them fitting into competitive tournament play, or competitive ladder play as well, I suppose. Yep. I like how I just skipped over Ball Spiders and there's not a single mention in chat about it. I think that's all you got to say about Ball Spiders, guys. Let's go to the other mage. Let's just go across the line like that. Effigy, a rare, 3 mana. It's a secret, which is cool. More secrets are always fun. When a friendly minion dies, summon a random minion with the same cost. So, okay. It's almost like giving your minions sort of a piloted Shredder-esque death rattle, essentially. Except that, obviously, the mana cost is the same, so it can be much better. So I think this is a card that will definitely see some use. Anything that makes minions stick on the board, even if it's not the same minion, is a very important thing. Again, like I mentioned earlier, Hearthstone is a game with a ridiculous amount of creature removal. So anything that makes that more difficult, such as a card like Effigy that replaces a minion that's immediately been killed, is a great card. And I think this could fit very well into decks like Mech Mage. I think this could fit well into Tempo Mage. I think this could just plain fit well into a lot of decks that Mech is going to have, so, or that Mage is going to have. So overall, yeah, I think it's a good card. I think it'll see some play. And we'll see if it does something like replace Duplicate. I wonder, because I think Duplicate is more situationally good, but in terms of just straight up playing like a Mech Mage style deck where you're just kind of being aggressive, building that board as quickly as possible, overwhelming your opponent, this is a card that's going to be a little bit more useful than Duplicate, because it creates a minion that you don't need to spend any mana for. And it also creates a minion on your opponent's turn as well, keep that in mind. So that might mess with their plans depending on what comes out of it, something they have to deal with, and it also gives you a minion that you can immediately use on your next turn. So I think it's a pretty great card, and I think a lot of people are going to use it. Yeah, should be interesting. Should be interesting. Yeah, and I think I know chat's behind, but I think Fairmere you're talking about Effigy, and I agree. Like, one of is probably good to start with. Anyway, Caldera Drake, or maybe Spellslinger. Either way, one of is probably good to start with. But Caldera Drake, 6 for 6/6. All right, even stats for the mana, not bad. You can use your hero power any number of times. Now, this is a card that I would be much more excited about as a neutral, and even then, it's not that great. It's, again, you know, good stats. It's not vulnerable to BGH, so that's nice as well. But by the time you play it, what is using your hero power many times going to give you as a mage? You can do a total of 5 damage any way you choose it if you spend an entire 10 mana turn only using your hero power. So, okay, yeah, you were talking about Effigy? Yeah, I agree. One of in a tempo would be fun. But anyway, so what does this really give you that playing a card would be, you know, not the right decision? So you play this, and then next turn, oh, I can use my hero power as many times as I want. That's good filler if you don't have a lot of cards in hand. But if you have cards in hand, it's going to be really rare to find an occasion to play your hero power more than once, rather than playing a card, really any card. So that's where I think this one's going to kind of fall flat a bit. It's and I agree too. That's way too slow as well. If it was a 5 for 5/5, if it was a 5/5 for 5, maybe a little bit better. Something like a 4 for 4/4 would be a 4/4 for 4 rather would be more exciting. But yeah, I don't think it's going to see play. Flame Lance. Let's check out the Flaming Lance. And 5 mana, deal 8 damage to a minion. So a giant targeted flame cannon. And right now, you know, we see a lot of fireballs being used for board clear, of course. That's 4 mana for 6 damage, any way you want to throw it. 5 mana for 8 damage. Can clear very large minions, obviously. It can take down, oh, I don't know. It can take down big druid minions. It can take down Ragnaros. It can take down anything with 8 health. A lot of the dragons out there would fall to this. So it's interesting, but at the same time, a lot of those minions, unless you're talking about a Ysera or something like that, which already has 12 health anyway, a lot of those minions already have 7 attack or more, so they're vulnerable to BGH at 2 less mana. So as far as removing big minions, I think BGH is probably still going to be the go-to, because it's cheaper, and it's probably going to deal with everything that Flame Lance is made to deal with as well, too. Yeah, my dog's name is Mako. So there you go. She's right here. She heard me say her name. Hello. You just want to sleep, don't you? Yep. Alright. I'll leave you to it. So, okay, Flame Lance. That's my opinions on that anyway. Yeah, it kills a lot of stuff. Obviously, it kills KT. And that's really what it's for, right? It's for those cards that are not vulnerable to BGH but still have a lot of health. But are there enough of those in play right now? No. However, when the Grand Crusade or Grand Tournament comes out, rather, maybe there will be. So maybe this card will see some play again. I think it's going to depend a lot on what we see come out of this expansion. Yeah, that's what I think. Arena card too, yeah, I agree. But again, I'm not really going to talk about Arena. Fallen Hero, 2 for a 3/2. Your hero power deals 1 extra damage. That's cool. I mean, it's fun. Lets you do 2 damage for 2 to anything on the board. That's obviously really powerful for Mage. The unfortunate thing about Fallen Hero is that it is exceptionally weak. It's a 2 health minion, so it's not going to last very long. So it's, you know, what do? Do you wait till turn 4 and play it and then your hero power? If you can't really play it on curve because it's probably going to die quickly. So and again, you know, I mean, it only lets you, your hero power, you know, you're still only using it once to do this per turn. It's just not going to survive long enough for you to really get a lot of value out of it, I would imagine. It's an interesting card, and I like that they're messing around with hero powers, because I did feel like overall the hero power was kind of the weakest part of the game, but I just don't think this one's going to see a ton of play. It's interesting, but yeah, I doubt we'll see it used a lot. We'll see. We'll see. Again, I always have to caveat this with, but then we'll see what the rest of the cards in the expansion are like. Let's move on to Paladin. Some cards that were just released a day or two ago now. Very new. 5 for 5/5. That makes me excited already. Tuskar Jouster. Battlecry, reveal a minion in each deck. If yours costs more, restore 7 health to your hero. So this is the first of those Joust cards that they've revealed, where it has this mechanic, which I don't know why they're calling it Battlecry instead of Joust. I mean, yeah, it is a Battlecry, but if they're specifically labeling it as a mechanic, why not just say Joust? And we understand that Joust works like a Battlecry. I don't know, but it's neat. I like it a lot. Reveal a minion. If yours costs more, restore 7 health to your hero. What fantastic control Paladin card. Really, really great there, because obviously 7 health is going to be awesome to have back at the point in the time when you're playing this card. You could probably use the health anyway, so it's certainly going to be nice. And it's a huge swing on board, too. You play a 5/5, and you restore 7 health to your hero. It could, this card, if I was going to run Control Paladin, absolutely I would put this card in there. This card is to a certain extent Paladin's Shield Maiden, you could make an argument for. And if you're playing a slower control deck, you're more likely to have this go off. And I think if you're going to put this in your deck, you're going to have a lot of higher health minions. So there's a chance that it just is a 5/5 for 5, which isn't the worst thing in the world as well. So I think it's going to be used. I think it's going to be tried at least. We'll see. We'll see. It's interesting. It is good versus aggro too. I agree. And that's what a lot of this Joust stuff seems to be for, is to be very like anti-aggro. All right, a legendary for Paladin. Edric the Pure. Edric the Pure. 7 for 3/7. Change all enemy minions attack to 1. Wow. Well, obviously, if you get to turn 7 against a Zoo Warlock, which oftentimes you are able to do with a slower Paladin deck, this can really mess up their board. The attack is very low, obviously. 3 attack is still substantial. If it was 4, it would be a much, much better card. As is, I think we're going to see it played around with. I think it can still maybe fit into some control stuff, but we'll see. If it had 4 attack, I'd be much more excited about it. 3 attack makes me not as willing to try it. I think we're going to do some experimentation with it, and then I think it's probably, for the most part, not going to get used, but we'll see. We'll see. It's a cool idea anyway. All right. Another Bolvar? Yeah, maybe. Argent Lance. 2 for a 2/2. Reveal a minion each deck if yours costs more, +1 durability. I like this card. I think it's cool. 2 for a 2/2. Helps you get a decent amount of early board control if you're playing that more control style Paladin. It's one of those cards where even theoretically in like aggro versus aggro, if you get lucky and win it, hey, you have a 3 durability weapon. That's nice. And if you don't, at least you have a 2 durability weapon. And it's 2 for 2/2. So stats wise, it's okay. It's not bad. We'll see how useful it is in control. But again, I think it could be a fairly decent anti-aggro tool. But I feel like I'm saying we'll see after each card because we just don't know. But I like the idea of this card. I feel like this one could be okay. Could be okay. I like it. I'm going to play around with it. Anyway. Moving on to Priest. Wow, only 1 Priest card revealed so far. Huh, Holy Champion. Let me just scroll up. There we go. Holy Champion, 4 for a 3/5. So we've got the stat line from the Aknai Soul Priest here. Yep. It is similar to the Shaman weapon, that is true. Only the +1 is iffy, whereas the Shaman obviously has the Overload. That's right. Yep. Holy Champion. Whenever a character is healed, gain +2 attack. So it's basically a little bit beefier version of the what is it, the 1/3 or 1/2 right now. I'm forgetting all the Priest card names for some reason at the moment, but anyway, it's a little bit more expensive version of that. A little bit better stats. At 5 health, it's fairly sticky. I think this one could certainly see some play in terms of the... Remember back when we saw like the Death Rattle sort of mid-rangey Zoo Priest sort of decks? This one could kind of fit in there as well too, I think, because it's something where it's a threat that really should be dealt with, and even if it's not, it becomes a 5/5 fairly quickly. It's still a 3/5 even if you don't heal, so I think it could be good. I like it. I like it as a potential, tempo sort of play. It's interesting. You go Light Warden. That's the name of it. Is Light Warden. Yeah. So that's cool. I've been missing playing the mid-range Priest lately, so I'm looking forward to using that card. Let's move on to Rogue. Shadowpan Cavalry. 5 for a 3/7. Combo +3 attack. So if you can combo it, it becomes a Boulder Fist Ogre, which is for 1 less mana, which is interesting. That's cool. So depending on how you're able to combo it, if you like prep a different spell, it could be a pretty big board turn. Should be interesting. Yeah, aggressive deck is what I want to use it for sure. Yeah, and so this one could be interesting. Rogue, I think, is going to see some pretty serious changes when it comes to deck options when TGT comes out. At least I hope they do anyway. And this card could fit into, another mid-rangey sort of board control-y, zoo-y kind of deck. We'll see. We will see. Now this one's interesting. It's Thoughtsteal, but for Rogue. 3 mana. Add 2 random class cards to your hand from your opponent's class. So, do you love what Nefarian does for you, but don't want to go to the trouble of playing Nefarian? Well, I have a card for you. It's called Burgle. And they actually have a guy on there that looks like the Hamburglar from McDonald's. But anyway, could be very, very good. Could be very, very useless. But again, a weapon class like Rogue will be able to use more of the spells than another class would be able to. So I think it's pretty cool. I think it's neat. Again, it would be a fun card to play around with. Certainly, it's strong in Arena. We'll see if it's strong in any other style of play. And again, it's not like Thought Steal in that it doesn't steal any card. It only steals spells. So, it's cool. I like it. I'm going to use it. Here, yeah, let me, I'll link the thread to you again here. This is the thread that I'm just using. There we go. Yeah. So it is. Hamburglar. And Poison Blade. This card is not good. It's really expensive. 1/3. Your hero power gives it +1 attack. I don't know what to say. It's just not a good card. It's way too expensive for what it does. You know, I think if this was a 2-mana weapon, maybe it would be a little bit better than at that point. I think it'd be theoretically playable. Since it could be an alternative to playing your hero power that turn, and then you could buff it up later on. And I think that's what Blizzard wanted to go for with a card like this, but I think 4 mana just makes it too difficult to fit into a lot of turns. So, yeah, it's only spells. Burgle is only spells. Yeah. It's, right. Oh, 2 random class cards, my bad. When I said creatures, I meant, like, neutral creatures. Yeah, so class cards, which I guess could include creatures. So, it is pretty much almost Thought Steal. Interesting. Alright, yeah, Poison Blade is terrible. Let's move on. Anub Arak. 9 mana for an 8/4. Very low health. But, Death Rattle, return this to your hand and summon a 4/4 Nerubian. And that could get really interesting, because late game, if you're going to be playing one of these guys every turn, and then if it's killed, it leaves behind a 4/4 which also needs to be dealt with. This is one of those cards that you would look at and you'd say sort of it might be kind of a win more card. If you're in a good enough position in your game to play this, yeah, it's going to give you a huge bonus. It's going to be extremely difficult to remove unless it gets like polymorphed or something like that. But if you're able to play this card, you probably aren't going to lose the game anyway, because to have the luxury to play a 9-mana card that's 8/4 stats-wise, as Rogue at that point in the game, if you have the luxury of playing that card, you're probably not going to lose the game. So, yeah, I think it's one of those like win more cards, and it's cool, but I don't think we're going to see it used very much. Now, let's move on to some Shaman cards, and this is really exciting. Shaman got a lot of interesting stuff so far in the cards that have been revealed. Tuskar Totemic is certainly one of those. 3 for 3/2, so a little bit weaker on the health side. Summon any random totem. So it can be any one of your 4 hero power totems, or it can be any one of the totem cards that go individually, like Mana Tide Totem, Vitality Totem, Flame Tongue Totem, Totem Golem, which we'll look at in a little bit. So this is a good card, because again, it's still fairly good stats-wise, but it also gives you another minion on the board. And it could be anything from a very good minion to something that's not quite as good, but it's always going to be fairly useful. So I think we're going to see, I hope we're going to see some good mid-range, totem-oriented, aggressive Shaman decks. And this guy's absolutely going to be in there. 2 of them in every deck. Should be cool, should be cool. And I feel like the RNG is not a huge concern with this guy because of the quality of the totems that exist in Shaman right now. So I think it's pretty good. I think it's pretty decent. Thunder Bluff Valiant, 5 for 3/6. Give your totems +2 attack. If you have a lot of totems, it's like an expensive Savage Roar for 2 more mana, I guess. But again, you know, in a game with a lot of creature removal, I don't really see the opportunity coming where you have that many totems on the board. At least that's not how it's been in Hearthstone yet. And that's a big reason why you don't see something like Bloodlust being played regularly in Shaman on the competitive level, because you just can't count on a card that expensive giving you that big of a bonus, because it's so unlikely that you're going to have that many minions on the board. The most consistent and it is +2 attack permanently, but the most consistently I've seen Bloodlust work is when I had like a token Shaman deck that I used back in the day. So, yeah. I don't know. It's interesting, it's interesting. We'll see. I think I kind of get scared by situational cards like this, but I could be wrong on this one. I'll leave room for that. Looks like chat doesn't agree with me as much as I would hope. But we'll see what happens. I think it's meh. but I think Totem Golem is awesome. 2 for a 3/4, and Overload 1, yeah, I'll take that. I am totally fine with that because I can use my hero power the next turn on turn 3. I can play other 2-drops that are strong in aggressive decks. I like it. Totem Golem is simply a solid minion, and I think the Overload is not a problem for playing this card. Yeah. We'll see. We'll see how it ends up going. But I don't think there's a whole lot more to say about Totem Golem other than it's a really solid card. It also is a totem too, so it's a card that can be summoned by Tuskar Totemic. So imagine having your Totemic come out, so you pay 3 mana for 3/2, and then you get a 3/4 without the Overload, because obviously he's summoned it, you wouldn't incur the Overload penalty. So the fact that he exists alone makes Tuskar Totemic that much better, and I think by himself, Totem Golem is also really good, so it's pretty cool. Yeah. It does synergize a little bit with Thunderbluff Valiant, but I'm still not totally convinced. I think if you're going to run a Totem deck, if you're going to play a Totem Tribe deck, you're going to include one Thunderbluff Valiant, one. Because it's going to kind of fill a similar role as Quartermaster, right? But beyond that, it may get cut. We'll see. Let's move on. Draenei Totem Carver. Gain +1/+1 for each friendly totem. So 4 for a 4/4. The stats are good. If you have, and let's say you have 2 totems out, it's a 6/6. If you have even 1 totem out, it's a 5/5 for 4. So it is a good tempo play as far as getting a 5/5 for 4 mana. I think it's could be a very solid card. And again, it all goes together, right? If you're gonna run a Totem Tribe deck, you're gonna include probably 2 of these. And the way I think of these is this is sort of like Shaman's answer to Tinkertown Technician, right? In Mech Mage, and of course Tinkertown is a neutral minion, but it works along the same lines, right? That it's a card that you can play that'll have better stats than the cost you paid for it, and you're not going to incur the Overload penalty as well with this Shaman card too, which is kind of unique as far as the stats that it can give you. So yeah, this card could be really good, could be. And again, even without any battle cry at all, it's still a 4 for a 4/4. So in a worst case scenario, you're not playing anything inefficiently at least. So I think it's a solid card. I'm going to put 2 in when I make my Shaman Totem deck like everybody else will when TGT comes out. Let's look at Ancestral Knowledge. 2 mana for this spell. Draw 2 cards. Overload 2. So that's, you know, it's interesting in that it lets you draw 2 cards for 2, but the Overload is so high. I think Overload 1 would have been okay on this. I don't think it would have been too strong at that point, because then let's say if it was Overload 1, you'd play it on turn 2. On turn 3, you'd still be able to at least use your hero power. It'd be the equivalent cost to Arcane Intellect, right? So I think this is just kind of like a slightly worse version of Arcane Intellect. Yeah, so I'm not a big fan of this card. I don't think it's gonna really get used. I'm curious what your opinions would be. Let's see. Yeah, I think the Overload is just too much. If it was Overload 1, I think it'd be worth playing. But because of the Overload 2, it's not cool. Unless we see Magma Shock come into a lot of decks, but that's 2 cards out of 30, so you can't really count on Magma Shock saving the day here. Late game, obviously the Overload doesn't really matter too much, and then the card draw is really good. So, you know, possibly you could use this and then just save it until the mid and late game. I still think it's too much Overload, but I could see a scenario or two where it might work. Yeah. I think it'll be tried, but I don't have like high hopes for that one. Yeah, Lava Shock might be good, but we'll see. Alright. Let's move on to Warrior. My favorite class, but a class that I've never been able to quite play the way I've wanted to. Yeah. Let's look at Bash. Bash, this is exciting. 3 mana, deal 3 damage, gain 3 armor. And the great thing about this card is that it's deal 3 damage. It's not deal 3 damage to a minion, gain 3 armor like many other cards right now. It's just straight up deal 3 damage, and that is so cool. That is awesome. So I think this card could certainly see some play. Obviously for Control Warrior, it works on the board. It gives you armor. Obviously, it's a good sustain card. And then if you think about something like a Face Warrior even, right? I mean, you could throw a couple of these in there too. It'd let you survive maybe an extra turn or two because of the armor while you're trying to finish somebody off. So I think this card could have a lot of applications. I like it. I'm not going to say you're going to see 2 in every deck because I don't think you will, but I think it's definitely going to be used and it's definitely going to be thought of as a better card coming out of this set. So it's cool to see. It's interesting to see some Warrior Direct Damage. That's and out of the Warrior Direct Damage cards that we've seen so far, which is the Mortal Strike, I believe. Yeah, Mortal Strike is one that does damage. Heroic Strike gives your hero power. So Mortal Strike is, not quite as useful because you need to be so low health to make it do good damage. But Bash, I think, is good. Bash is good. Yeah. Oh, did I forget Warlock? Oh, I forgot Warlock. Sorry, guys. I'm scrolling down. Let me go up here. All right, I got over-scrolled. It's true. All right, let's go back up to Warlock. Demon Fuse. 2 mana. Give a demon +3/+3. Give your opponent a mana crystal. Yeah, I don't know about this. Let's think about best case scenario here, right? I play my Flame Imp on turn 1. I coin out my Void Walker. On turn 2, I Demon Fuse one of these guys, and then they are up to 4 mana on their next turn, and then they play whatever they've got, So it could be really good, it could be really bad. Buffing again. The thing about buffing cards in Hearthstone is that because, once again, minion removal is so strong and can come in many different forms at very sudden times, buffing is a dangerous way to play because so many times you will buff a card and it will just simply be gone either way next turn. So just for the basic fact that it's a pure buffing card, I don't like it. And because just of the way Hearthstone is. And because it also gives your opponent a mana crystal, it makes it even less worth it. So it's basically, the way you need to think about Demon Fuse is that it is potentially 3 direct damage. Or you need to think of it as a 3 damage minion with charge that gives your opponent a mana crystal for 2 mana. So because you can't count on the minion that you buff sticking around, you would never play this card before on something that you weren't immediately going to attack with. So if you're going to think of this card in any way, think of it as direct damage. And if you're going to think of it as direct damage, you can just play Dark Bomb for 2 mana to do 3 damage to anything, which is a bit more versatile. And again, when you're playing an aggressive Warlock deck, you're probably going to be wanting to use most of your mana to build your board, not to buff necessarily one minion. Again, because individual minion removal is very strong in Hearthstone. So I think I like buffing as a mechanic in CCGs. It's just not very strong in Hearthstone, so I don't think we're going to see this one used very much. Yeah. Let's move all the way over to Wilfred Fizzlebang. 6 mana. Cards you draw from your hero power cost 0. Wow. Well, that's certainly interesting. He's a 4/4, so he's not going to live for very long. He's certainly a bit vulnerable. But the fact that he's only 6 mana is really intriguing to me, actually. So I wonder what this guy could actually bring. I wonder if you'd be able to fit this guy into handlock, perhaps. Yeah, and Wilfred Fizzlebang, the reason why Jiraxis is standing behind him is because in the game, actually in the raid that this expansion is based on, Wilfred Fizzlebang is the gnome warlock that summons Jiraxis, and then is subsequently killed by Jiraxis, and then you have to fight Jiraxis in the game. So that's where he's from. That's why Jiraxis is behind him. But yeah, just kind of a millhouse for yourself. A little bit more expensive though. But I think I want to. Yeah, I want to give him a try. I want to give him a try, probably in handlock. But no, it'd have to be in handlock, wouldn't it? Because Zoo, yeah, it's way too expensive for Zoo. Yeah, I think handlock you could try it out in, but you'd take out Sylvanas and put this guy in maybe. Maybe. It's worth a try at least. All right. Oh, okay, let's hit Wrathguard now. 2 mana for a 4/3, so it's a lot of stats for not much mana. Whenever this minion takes damage, also deal that amount to your hero. Ouch! That could be very, very bad. That could be scary. Yeah, and Emperor Thorzen. Yeah, why would you put in over Emperor Thorzen? Yep, that's a really good point. Yeah, I'll probably still try it for the lulz, but that's a good point. 2 for a 4/3, Wrathguard. Like I said, whenever this minion takes damage, also deal that much damage to your hero. It's a very strong card on turn 2. Unfortunately, it only has 3 health. If it was a maybe a 4/4, that'd be cool, right? But since it's a 4/3, it's going to get removed really quick. You're just going to take damage without being able to use it because it doesn't have charge. If you take damage and you're playing Zulok, that's going to be less hero powering you're able to do safely in the mid game when you need to start drawing those cards a lot. All in all, I don't think this is a very good card. It's not the greatest. And yeah, you can Shield Slam face with it. That is true, Faramir. Because the other thing is that whenever this minion takes damage, also deal that amount to your hero. So that means that it's not just up to 3. It's whatever amount of damage Wrathguard takes. So if Ragnaros hits Wrathguard, you will take 8 damage as well. So it's way too risky, way too abusable by your opponent. I don't really like it. And someone could say, oh, if you're going face, then who cares, right? Because you don't care about taking damage. Well, actually, with Warlock, you do, because you need your life to draw more cards. That's your draw mechanic. So by taking that damage on your minion, your draw mechanic is being reduced. Thusly, your ability to flood the board and win the game is being reduced as well, too. So that's why I don't think it fits into aggro. So anyway, let's look at Warrior. We've already looked at Bash. It's awesome. King's Defender is not so awesome. 3 for a 3/2. If you have a minion with Taunt, gain +1 durability. Fiery War Axe is pretty nice, guys, and it costs 1 less mana. And with the necessity to use Death's Bite with so much of Warrior right now, you're not really gonna want a weapon that isn't Death's Bite to stick around, right, for too long. So I think Fiery War Axe is still the go-to weapon here. You know, at least it's the first sword weapon for warriors. I mean, all the warriors, weird, like the warrior icon is a sword, but all the weapons so far have been axes. So at least it's the first actual sword. Incidentally, this is a tanking sword from Karazhan. That's where this weapon comes from in the game. And yeah, it is just a crappy Fiery War Axe, pretty much. I would say you could run it with Dread Corsair in Face Warrior, maybe? Just really trying to reach for when you might want to play this, but I'm just not seeing a whole lot of options. So let's move on to Bolster. Bolster. Alright. 2 mana, give your Taunt minions +2/+2. So that and King's Defender really do seem to be Blizzard sort of pushing us towards a different type of control warrior, a very taunt-based control warrior. So while I like the idea of having a bunch of taunt minions and giving them all +2/+2, you know, this is like Goldshire Footman hype all day, right? But we'll see, we'll see. It's definitely a card worth considering, because this is a card that makes me want to build a deck around it, right? It's a big, broad buff. It's not a single minion buff, and I know I said I don't like buffing earlier, but if it's a broad buff like this, it's obviously much safer. The cost is very low for what it can theoretically do, so this is a card that I'm certainly going to build a deck around. I'm going to try to build a board control Taunt Warrior. We'll see how it goes. Maybe I'll even throw King's Defender in there. But yeah, I don't know if this one's going to work out. Depends on, again, you know, on a lot of the cards in TGT. But I'm certainly going to give it a try. I think it's cool, man. I like this kind of card. I like it. It's a card that I want to build a deck around. Whether or not it'll work is unimportant. Alright, so let's move on to the neutral cards. This is actually taking less time than I thought it did, but that's great. That's a good thing. Maiden of the Lake. Let's check it out. Did I miss anything? Nope, I'm good. Alright, Maiden of the Lake. 4 mana for a 2/6. Your hero power costs 1 less, which is 1. Your hero power costs 1. So, okay. 4 mana for a 2/6. Yeah, it's probably not going to die quickly, I guess, but it's not going to really give you a lot of board presence. Having your hero power be 1 mana instead of 2. Just going through the hero powers, there's not really anything out there that I think is going to be terribly helpful. So, I mean, it's a common. It's not meant to be super good anyway, but I don't think this is going to really see a lot of play. Alright, Coliseum Manager. Inspire, return this minion to your hand. We get into some really interesting stuff here with the neutral cards, and again, when you see stuff like this, it makes me wonder, how can I build a deck around this? There was a card I don't know if you're familiar with it, but there was a card in Magic the Gathering called Battle of Wits, which was an enchantment, which I believe, if I remember right, the specific of it were, if you have 200 cards in your deck at the beginning of your next turn, the beginning of upkeep, which is basically the beginning of your turn, you win the game. So, and the standard size for Magic the Gathering decks was and still is about 60 cards. And so having 200 cards in your deck is insane, right? I mean, if you and you're allowed to have 4 of each card in your deck in Magic the Gathering, but still, out of 200 cards, the amount of inconsistency was unfathomable. However, I saw that card, a lot of other people saw that card, and because of the amount of cards and sets that had come before it, people were able to actually construct tournament-winning decks around this card. And they would have these, I played it too, it was so fun. You'd have this huge stack for your deck, and it was all drawing cards. It was basically just everything to cycle through as fast as you could, return cards into your deck from your graveyard and stuff, and it actually did work. It was a tournament-viable deck based around this ridiculous card. So when I look at this card here, 3 mana for a 2/5, Inspire, return this minion to your hand, I think kind of a similar thing. On the surface, it doesn't look that good. You could say, oh, it's anti-aggro, 3 mana for a 2/5, it can hit something and then you return it to your hand and then it gets its health back and you play it again. And so I'm saying, oh, alright, so I'm paying 5 mana to restore a maximum of 4 health to this minion, and then it doesn't get to attack when I play it again, and it doesn't sound good. It doesn't sound good. However, if there are more mechanics that deal with the number of cards in your hands, interacting with specific cards in your hands, things that happen when cards are returned to your hands, these are all mechanics that Blizzard can then build off of for future expansions, even if they don't do it for the grand tournament. So this is a card that I doubt anyone will want to use. I don't really want to use it right now, but it's definitely a card to keep an eye on. There's going to be cards in Hearthstone as more expansions are released. If it did have charge, it'd be better, obviously, right? If this is a card you want to keep an eye on. Keep it in the back of your mind, anyway. There's cards that you're like, all right, someday that card might be worth putting into something, but it's not now. It's not now, but it's interesting. I like that Blizzard has cards like this in the game. I really do. Let's move on to Frost Giant. 10 mana for an 8/8. Costs 1 less for each time you used your hero power this game. So that's interesting. If you talk about handlock, right? You're going to be using it quite a bit. And so, let's see, use it, 3 times or so? About 3 times before you start playing your 4-drops. There's going to be turns when you can do it later. I think the thing is this card may actually work pretty well in Control Warrior, because in Control Warrior there's a lot of turns where you're just going to use your hero power. That said, even if you use your hero power a lot, at 10 mana, it's going to take a while before he's playable comfortably in a turn, and then you play him and he just gets BGH. So I don't know if this card's going to be too used. I think it's cool. I like the idea behind it. I can theory craft in my head ways that this could be potentially used, but again, as long as BGH is in the game, I think there's better options. So probably not going to see it play a little bit, but it's a cool addition to the Giant category, I guess we could say. We need a Giant Slayable on cards, by the way. That needs to be a tribe. Yep. Alright, let's see. Gotta scroll up. Sky Captain Crag. Our Pirate Knight. Charge. 7 mana for a 4/6. Costs 1 less for each friendly pirate. Well, too bad pirate decks don't exist, so this guy will not be played. But, well, actually they do exist. I played Pirate Paladin for a lot of games a couple seasons ago. And in that particular case, I would have a maximum of 2 pirates on the board at any given time. So we're talking most likely 5 mana, maybe 4 if you're lucky for a 4/6 charge. So yeah, 4 mana for 4/6 charge is great. 5 mana for a 4/6 charge is meh, because Arcane Golem exists. So I don't know. I mean, I'd love to see a lot more pirates. I mean, Blizzard, if you want us to play pirates, you got to give us more pirates. More pirates, please. I'd love to play a pirate deck. So this guy may be good if more pirates that are not easily removed come out. But until then, probably not going to see anyone with charge like that anytime soon. Let's checking chat. Yeah. Not casting OGN today. It's Papa Smithy and Monty. So let's look at Silverhand Regent. A 3 for 3/3? Okay, great. Inspire, summon a 1/1 Silverhand Recruit. So in Paladin, that makes your hero power summon 2 Silverhand Recruits, basically. So it's cool. It's cool. I like it. I like it. If you think about, I actually kind of think about this in terms of Shaman. I play this, I play my hero power, I get a totem, and I get a 1/1. My board is getting bigger. My chances of having a huge Bloodlust turn have increased. So I think there's going to be some unique applications for this card. I mean, let's see. For 1 more mana, you can basically achieve the same thing as you could from a Violet Teacher. As in, you have a minion and the 1/1 that comes out of it, and whatever your hero power gives you. So, I don't know. I like it. It's cool. It's a cool card. I'm going to definitely be playing around with this one a little bit. In a buffing deck, again, playing a 3/3 and then a cheaper card to buff the 1/1 is theoretically an inexpensive way to get a decent board out, but yeah, we'll see how it ends up working out. As I say with every card at the end, we'll see. Argent Watchman. 2 for 2/4. Can't attack, inspire, can attack as normal this turn. So 2 for 2/4, obviously great stats. If you, the only problem is it can attack, and will your hero power really be usable to let that happen? I mean, you can taunt it up. You can do all the sorts of things that you could do with a with an Ancient Watcher to this card, but I don't know. Again, like early game, because you could make the argument, oh well, it's a 2/4 for 2. It's so good anti-aggro. Early game, you use this, and then you just use your hero power next turn. But in most anti-aggro situations, if you're using your hero power in turn 3, you're gonna be pretty weak because they're gonna be building the board. 2 damage is not gonna trade very well. So I'm just not a big fan of this card. Yeah, I don't think it's too great. Yeah. All right. Let's move on. Kodo Rider. 6 for 3/5. Inspire. Summon a 3/5 War Kodo. Again, this is a card where I feel like it's a little bit of one of those win more cards, you know? Whereas if you have the luxury to be able to play this and then use your hero power, or play this, have it live till the next turn and use your hero power, you're probably going to be winning the game anyway. And obviously starting to stack your board with 3/5s is very, very strong, but there's just not a lot of situations where you're going to be able to pay 6 mana and then another 2 mana for your hero power in turn 8 to make this happen. And 2 3/5s on turn 8 is not really a strong turn anyway. And then B, to play this guy on turn 6 and have him live till turn 7, where maybe it will be decent to have a couple 3/5s out. So yeah. So I don't know. I think it's kind of a win more card, but I think we honestly could see people try it out. Yeah. Huh. Maybe. I don't think that's great, but I think this one could see some play. And this is actually, I mean, I know I didn't want to talk a lot about Arena, but I think this is a good Arena card, because in Arena it's less likely that you're going to have your stuff cleared than normal, because decks are more inconsistent. So then if you do play it on turn 6, then you can start rolling with 3/5s. That's really strong in Arena. So if anything, he's going to be a decent Arena card, I think. Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. Alright, Justicar True Heart. The dude that changes your hero powers. 6 for 6/3. Replace your starting hero power with a better one. And let's take a look at those better hero powers. They are right here. Let's scroll down. So, whoa, okay, there. So heal becomes doubled. Rogue gives you a 2/2, which is cool. Totemic Slam. Let's see, summon a totem of your choice. Obviously very helpful. Soul Tap. Just draw a card. Don't take 2 damage. For warriors, gain 4 armor. Doubles it. Paladin doubles, Mage doubles, Hunter does 3 instead of 2, so Hunter, oh, doesn't double. Boo-hoo. And Dire Shapeshift doubles. Yeah, so it basically doubles your hero power, with some exceptions, like making the draw free for warlocks health-wise, and the biggest one I think is, well, the two biggest ones I think are these two here, making a 2/2 weapon and choosing the totem. That's pretty nice, but they're all okay, obviously. Moving back to the card, though, it's a 6 for 6/3. It does change your hero power permanently. So it's not like you're going to lose this improved hero power once it dies. So that makes the 3 health a little bit more palatable, I suppose. But I still don't know. I mean, again, if you look at your turn 6 cards that are common right now in the game, you have Sylvanas, you have Emperor Thaurissan. So where will Justicar Trueheart fit in with all of this? And are those improved hero powers going to be good enough to warrant taking out one of those other cards? I think it's an extremely strong card for Priest, probably, and Warrior as well, too. I mean, 4 health, 4 armor is a very big survivability swing for those classes, so yeah, that could be okay, too. This one might see some play. Might see some play. Yeah, it feels like a Warrior card, doesn't it? Yeah. I like the idea of getting a 2/2 weapon with Rogue as well, but this just doesn't fit into any Rogue decks right now. Yeah. Sucks Priest? It depends. Depends on if you need a lot of health and you have a lot of free mana, I guess, but yeah. Warrior's probably pretty good with that. I wonder if this card fits into Shaman, Totem Shaman, it'd be pretty strong to start rolling the right totem every single turn. That'd be pretty cool. But yeah, Warrior's going to gain a lot from this. I agree. Cool. Alright, so let's move on to the next line. Lowly Squire. And we're going to have to go through these fast because I've got about 20 minutes. No, about 24 minutes until Champions starts. So I got to finish, let's see, all these cards by then. So we're going to try to do that. Alright. Lowly Squire. 1 for 1/2. Inspire, gain +1 attack. If you're playing in an aggro deck, you're probably not going to be wanting to hero power on turn 2, you know? So I don't think we're going to see this really used that much. I mean, it's 1 for 1/2, so stats-wise, it's not bad. You know, maybe it'd be okay, and it is permanent, I suppose, too. So you play it next turn, use your hero power, it becomes a 2/2. How do you trade with what your opponent's been playing? It's one of those cards that can get out of control, but I don't think it's really great. Yeah. I don't think it's that good. Alright. Let's see. Armored Warhorse. 4 for a 5/3. Battlecry, reveal a minion in each deck. This is one of those Joust minions. If yours costs more, gain charge. So 4 for a 5/3 with charge is pretty great. Yeah, that's fun. However, it only gains charge if you win the Joust. And are you going to be playing a deck that relies on minions with low health and charge in a deck with a lot of high cost minions to win that Joust? Probably not. So I feel like this card is kind of has anti-synergy with the Joust mechanic to begin with. So I don't think we're going to see this one used. There's a lot of other 4-drops that are perfectly fine that are better than this and do more things for you right away without the risk. And not to mention, charge just really isn't terribly useful in a higher cost card, generally. Unless it's Grommash Hellscream, but that's a rare exception. Or all of those, like, what is it, Rocket something, that the 5/2 that I face at the beginning of every season. Let's move on. Yeah. Meh horse. Garrison Commander. You can use your hero power twice this turn. 2 for a 2/3. He's going to stick around, so you know, maybe you'll get a chance to go for it. But again, you know, what hero power do you really want to use twice each turn? Paladin get a couple 1/1s. Hunter could do the damage twice, which is nice. But again, you know, if you play this guy in the mid game, he's not going to do anything for you on the board, and he's just going to die right away. So say you play him on turn 6, and then you do your hero power twice. You get a minimal benefit, and he doesn't really give you any board advantage, or really any presence at that point. If you play him early, if you just curve him out on turn 2, The next turn, you're going to be on turn 3. You can't use your hero power twice anyway. And he's still doesn't give you a lot of board presence. Reckless Rocketeer, that's what it is. Yeah. What's up, AED Ninja? Thanks for stopping by, Mr. Sub. So, yeah, I'm not a big fan of this one. Not too much. Let's see. Nexus Champion Sarad. Inspire. Add a random spell to your hand. 5 for a 5/4. Or 5 for 4/5 rather. So he is a bit more survivable. 5 health is dealt with by a few things specifically, such as another Lotheb or Emperor or Deathspite with the Death Rattle about to go off. So he is deal withable, but adding a random spell to your hand can be very, very strong. It also can be very, very weak. I don't know if he necessarily gives you enough board presence to warrant playing him, you know, and just because you just can't count on the spell you get being good. So it's gonna be interesting. It's probably gonna be like an enjoyable card to play, but I don't think that it's really gonna be competitive per se. Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, the 4/5 are decent stats, but it's I feel like the most important thing in any CCG deck is consistency, and the farther away from being able to play the exact same game every game, the more your win rate is going to go down. So I don't think a Nexus Champion Sarad really fits in terribly well with that. North Sea Kraken, 9 mana for a 9/7, Battlecry, deal 4 damage. She's like a giant fire elemental, which is cool. I mean, 4 damage is a pretty big board swing, but he's also very expensive as well. So at that point in the game, will 4 damage really get you a whole lot? Will you be paying 9 mana to do 4 damage and then just get it BGH? Probably. Yeah, probably. So I don't think we're going to see him used a lot. In Magic the Gathering, there are different types of players that they've identified over the years. There's Johnny, Timmy, and Spike, right? And Johnny is the 7-year-old who got a pack of cards for his birthday, and he goes, "Oh, what a big minion, 9/7, it's huge. I'm gonna put this in my deck. I'm gonna play it, and I'm gonna like do a ton of damage and attack people." And he doesn't really think through the actual logistics of playing it. He just sees a big minion and he loves it, and it goes in the deck, and that's cool. There should be cards like that in every CCG. Crawworm is a good example of that in Magic the Gathering. Then you have your Johnnies. Well, Timmy was the kid who loves to throw big creatures around. Johnny is the one who values cool combos and playing their own distinct decks and styles over winning, per se. And I think I fall more into that category where I like to make an interesting strategy and see it work, even if it doesn't necessarily win consistently. That's fun. So that just to kind of continue with that. Then you have Spike at the end. Spike only cares about winning. Whatever wins the most, that's what he will play. That's it. So out of those 3 types of players in CCGs, generally that's a good litmus to go by in terms of what you're designing your card around. Will this card fulfill the desires of one of these 3 archetypes of players? And if it does, then it's probably an okay card to put in the set. So I think this is definitely a Timmy card right here. North Sea Kraken, the Timmy card. Injured Kvaldir. 1 mana for a 2/4, Battlecry, deal 3 damage to this minion. So he becomes a 2/1. And yeah, he can get healed up and become a big 2/4 for 1 mana, which is great, I guess. But most games, you're just not going to be able to do this. I think what the biggest thing here is you've got insane Voodoo Doctor synergy, guys, right? I mean, Injured Kvaldir, coin, Voodoo Doctor, huge, man. You get a 2/3 for 1, and you get another 2/1. Massive turn right there. But that's about it. So I don't think Injured Kvaldir is going to be the greatest. Maybe if he was like I don't really know how you'd do it, because you can't make him a 2/2 for 1. That would be good. And honestly, you know, if he took 2 damage and went down to 2/2, that would feel more like a rare card to me. And that's the thing with Hearthstone. Is sometimes the epic cards feel like commons. Sometimes the commons feel like epics. The distribution of rarity in Hearthstone is a little bit odd, I think, for what the cards actually do. This guy seems like he would be a rare card if he only lost 2 health. So, and yeah, like Faramir is saying in chat right now, Zombie Chow is just simply better in nearly every situation. Yeah. 3 or 4 with the same effect would be interesting. That's a good point. Master of Ceremonies. MC 3 for 4/2. If you have a minion with spell damage, gain +2/+2. So it could become a 6/4 for 3, which is good stats. Still very vulnerable. And you need a minion with spell damage on the board. Blood Mage Thalnos synergy. Yeah, it's not that great. I'm not a big fan of this, unless crazy spell damage decks start coming back. I'm gonna go kind of quickly through these last ones. I don't want to, but I'm running out of time, so I have to. Eldis Darkbane, a legendary, 3 for 3/4, good stats. Whenever you target this minion with a spell, deal 3 damage to a random enemy. Again, not a lot of buffing going on in Hearthstone. So, are you going to really have a lot of cards to use on this? Maybe in Priest, you could. In Priest, this might work. Otherwise, I don't know if it's going to see a lot of play in the type of decks we see right now. But this kind of card is one of the cards that you want to keep an eye on, because it could become very good depending on what else is in the expansion. And really, it could become good with other stuff in the game already. So I would rate this one as like a distinct maybe. This is definitely a card I'm going to be playing around with, for sure. Alright, let's see. So, Tournament Medic, moving quickly. 4 for a 1/8. Restore 2 health to your hero with Inspire. So, yeah, he heals you, which is great whenever you use your hero power, but he's a 1/8 for 4 mana, so he gives you exactly 0 board presence. The big deal with this guy is that you play him in those crazy Inner Rage Priest decks, or Inner Fire Priest decks, where suddenly he becomes an 8/8 for 4, and before he gets BGH, you get 1 attack in it. It feels awesome. So, maybe. But outside of Inner Fire, I don't see this guy being too good. Alright, Master Jouster. 6 for a 5/6. Not bad stats. Reveal a minion in each deck. It's a joust thing. If yours costs more, gain Taunt and Divine Shield. Wow. Well, if you're going to be running a big-time Control Paladin deck, or a big, expensive Control Warrior deck, maybe. Maybe. But if I'm playing Control Warrior, am I going to put this guy in there over Shield Maiden? I don't think so. So, it's an interesting card. I just don't think it's quite good enough. We'll see. Going through quickly. Crowd Favorite. 4 for 4/4. Whenever you play a card with Battle Cry, gain +1/+1. Oh, that's interesting. It is interesting. Because you're going to have Battle Cry cards throughout the game. If you play him on curve, it's debatable whether or not he will survive. The nice thing is that you can also think of the +1/+1 essentially as healing, so this will help him perhaps trade more efficiently. So I don't know. This one might be interesting, but overall I don't think we're gonna see it a lot, just because it would require a very specific setup to be able to use well in the deck. So I don't think Crowd Favorites is gonna get a whole lot of use. Now, Aidis Darkbane's sister, Fiola Lightbane, and this was a fun boss fight, by the way, in Tournament of the Crusader in WoW. When you fought these two, it was cool. 3 for 3/4 again, good stats, legendary stats, you may say. Whenever you target this minion with a spell, gain Divine Shield. So interesting. Again, if you have a lot of buffing, you can get a lot of synergy out of that as well too. But I don't know. Again, I want to try. I really want buffing decks to work. I really do, but it's just so hard to get buffed creatures to survive in Hearthstone. But I think maybe this expansion, maybe we'll find some answers here. I'm gonna try it out. Do I still play WoW? Very, very casually. Very casually. Flame Juggler, 2 for 2/3. Battlecry, deal 1 damage to a random enemy. If only it was 1 damage to whatever we wanted, then this card would be good. But because the Elven Archer is not that great because of the stats 1/1. But 2 for 2/3 that dealt 1 damage, that'd be a fantastic card. That'd be great. 1 damage to a random enemy still is pretty good. It's a good it's a good anti-aggro card. It's a good because you can take out things like Worgen Infiltrator from Face Hunter. It's also a good card in something like perhaps even a Zeus-style deck where you're trying to just get that little edge in the early game to start to build your big board and overwhelm your opponent. So I think this guy could see some play. The randomness is obviously a bit of a concern, but early in the game when there's not a lot of targets, the randomness can be mitigated a little bit. So I think we might see him. We might see some play with that. I'm gonna give him a try. Yeah. All right, let's see. The Skeleton Knight is our next legendary. 6 for 7/4. Death Rattle, reveal a minion in each deck. If yours costs more, return this to your hand. So it's got a Death Rattle Joust instead of a Battle Cry Joust. So basically, this guy has good attack stats. He's a little bit weaker, but if you win the Joust, he comes back. Again, you'd have to. You'd think he'd fit more into like a control style deck, but I don't know. Edwin Van Cleef isn't a pirate. He should totally be a pirate. I never noticed that, but it's true. Yeah. This card is just not that great. Let's move on. Let's see. Clockwork Knight. 5 for a 5/5. Battle Cry, give a friendly mech +1/+1. So it's obviously got that mech synergy. It fills in a mech gap where there's not really a lot of mechs viable above 4 mana. So it could be okay. It's a good body anyway. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh mechs are making me tired. All right, so yeah, maybe not. I'm not too terribly keen on it because +1/+1 to another mech at that point in the game may not make a big difference. It probably won't. All right, and our final legendary. Let's see what it is. It is 4 for 4/4. Gormak the Impaler Battle Cry. If you have at least 4 other minions, deal 4 damage. So this whole theme, the whole thing we've been talking about this entire time, is how good minion removal is in Hearthstone. And it's so unlikely that you're going to have 4 minions out on the board at the same time in most decks. There are some exceptions. There is Paladin that has Muster for Battle, a way to get big amounts of minions on the board. There is potentially Shaman. If you have enough tokens, if you have enough totems out, you can potentially have enough. And it is 4 targeted damage, so it is 4 damage where you want it to go. So that part is very good. If you are playing, I don't know, Rogue with Violet Teacher or something like that, you know, Zoo Warlock, where you have spiders, you have Imp Gang Boss. This guy could be actually pretty good in a deck like that. But Zoo is probably the best way, yeah. But still it's a big risk, and it's one of those cards that could come up very, very dry. And yeah, it's the definition of a win more card. It's not. It's probably not going to be a card that wins you the game, but it may be a card that helps you secure already one game. So, yep. So there we go. All right. So let's see. We've got 4 more cards to get through. Silent Knight. 3 for a 2/2, Stealth Divine Shield. It's interesting. I like Divine Shield. I really have always enjoyed Divine Shield because I like messing with people who don't know how to trade minions efficiently. The very first deck I ever made in Hearthstone was a straight up pure Divine Shield deck, and I took it all the way to the very highest rank in under 24 hours with 6 losses. It won a ridiculous amount, and all it was a Paladin deck with like all the Divine Shield minions, and people just didn't know how to trade against it. And because it's tough to trade against Divine Shield a lot of times. And so this guy, Divine Shield, not cost efficient at all, but maybe it's enough because he's so targeted. You know, he's so invulnerable. He's literally unremovable with a single card. You have to do some sort of multiple AoE or something like that. So maybe. I want to make a Divine Shield deck again, so I'll probably try him out. Other than that, I don't think he's great. 3 for a 2/1, Divine Shield and Charge. That card's kind of exciting because, again, it's too expensive, but it does have Divine Shield, so you're always going to see 1 mana added onto that. The fact that it has Charge, the fact that it lets you essentially pay 3 mana, you get a 2/1, and then do 2 damage to nearly anything you want to, unless there's, like, taunts involved. So, could be a decent swing early on. 1 health is weak to hero powers and stuff like that, but if you're vying for board in an aggro versus aggro match, then it's not going to be as big of a deal because the hero power being used means they don't play any minions that turn. So maybe it's cool. I like Divine Shield, so I'll probably give it a try at least. Yep. Alright. Mukla's Champion, 5 for 4, 3. Give your other minions +1/+1. Ooh, that's exciting. If you have a lot of minions on the board, do it. Otherwise, it's a pretty bad body, and if you draw him when your board has been cleared, he is completely useless. So I don't think it's that great of a card. It's also Inspire. It's not even a battle cry, so Mukla's Champion is pretty bad. Gadgets and Jouster, 1 for 1, 2. You reveal a minion. If yours costs more, gain +1/+1. So if you're going to put this guy in an aggressive deck, it's going to be hard to make a situation where you're going to win that joust. So maybe this, and again, why would you take a chance on this guy in a control deck when you can just play Zombie Chow, even with the heal? Because the heal never really matters with Zombie Chow. Very seldom does it. So this guy is basically like either Zombie Chow without the heal or potentially worse Zombie Chow. So I don't know. I guess he is, yeah, he's a 2/3. No, I don't think he's that good. I don't think so. Might be fun to play with, but I don't think you can justify putting him in instead of Zombie Chow, you know? Yeah. It's a 2/3. Yeah, it's not a 3/4. I wish it was a 3/4. If it was a 3/4, that would be so much better, man. But it is a 2/3. Yep. Yeah. Dude, if it was a 3/4, I would definitely play him. But that is it. And Champions starts right soon. Let me move this over here so I can link that as well. 1 second. All right, so I will link the stream. Man, I've been like studying Korean too much lately. I will link the stream for you guys to go watch that. Thanks for watching this. Hopefully it's been interesting. Again, like I was saying, just my initial impressions on these cards. I'm not saying this is the exact way all these cards are going to be used. Obviously, I'm going to be wrong about a lot of these things, and I'm happy to be wrong about a lot of these things because that's what's great about CCGs is there's so many people figuring out unique ways to use all the cards, and as the card pool grows, so do the amount of strategies. And no matter what the cards that come out for Hearthstone are, the game will consistently get better purely because there are going to be more cards in the game. So it's going to be cool to see what happens with all these, and I'm sure I'll be doing a stream opening a bunch of packs when the expansion comes out, a lot more review later on as more cards are released as well too, but I wanted to get at least one video in here. So thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Check my Twitter out for the link on that video later if you missed the early part of it as well. See you guys later.